This is the first Sunday in June, right? Yeah, I'm trying to keep up with dates in life. So welcome to the first Sunday in June. I'm excited to be here today. I'm excited about this topic. It's something that we all can relate to. Hopefully you've been following along. We're talking about the fruit of the Spirit, and today we're talking about joy. And this one can be a little tricky sometimes. So we're going to dive in, and hopefully you will walk away with a little bit better understanding about joy today. So our world is seeking and searching for joy, and people chase it through success, through relationships, possessions, experiences, entertainments, achievements. Yet so often what they find is only temporary happiness, something that rises and falls based off of our circumstances. But the joy that Scripture speaks about, it's different. It's a deep contentment and confidence in God that remains even when life becomes difficult. It is the kind of joy that doesn't always make sense to the people that are around you, and it's the kind of joy that can exist along grief, uncertainty, disappointment, and struggle. There's a song, I'm not going to sing it, Lucas, but a song that says, "I still have joy. I still have joy. After everything I've been through, I still have joy." Can you testify to that just for a moment? Can you testify everything that you've been through? There can still be joy even in spite of that. And to the world, that sounds incomprehensible. How can someone remain joyful when life is in turmoil? How can there be peace in the middle of chaos and hope in the middle of heartbreak, joy in the middle of suffering? And to answer this biblical joy, it is not rooted in what's happening around us. It's rooted in who God is within us. So today we're going to explore what kind of that joy looks like, how we receive it, and how we maintain it in every season of life. And today I'm thrilled. It's the girls' club up here today. And I am super thrilled to have Kate and Rachel joining us. Thank you so much for being up here, Rachel. Totally a little bit out of her comfort zone, but you know what? I think she has joy to be up here today, maybe. And we're going to start with, I think, what everybody would expect to be the kind of that typical first question, a defining, because sometimes some of us don't understand the difference between joy and happiness, right? So for you, what do you think of, and can you give us an understanding of when you hear the word joy, how is it biblical joy is different from happiness?
I think it comes down to the source. I think that's kind of the obvious low-hanging fruit, as you would say, get it, fruit of the Spirit.
Very nice.
I think happiness is conditional. Happiness comes from external sources. Do what makes you happy. Oh, doing this makes me so happy. And not to discount any of that, that's great. But I think, like I said, happiness is conditional. It's fleeting. It can change. Doing what makes you happy, well, that might not always make you happy. Or anything could happen that makes you unhappy. Things happen every day that make us upset, that make us sad, frustrated, irritated, you name it. And then some things might make you happy. So I think happiness is conditional, number one, and it comes from external source versus joy is the opposite of that. Joy is not conditional. It doesn't matter what goes on around you. It's a state of being. Happiness is just a fleeting emotion versus joy exudes certain emotions. Joy can produce emotions, but joy is true joy comes from within you, comes from your hope in the Lord. And so therefore, because it is founded in it is on that foundation of Jesus, and it's not conditional. It's unchanged. It doesn't matter what's going on around you. It's still the root of everything.
I mean, I don't know what else you can add to that. I figure whoever goes first, that's the answer. I don't know. I think the only thing to add would be like happiness, much like you said, it's external. It's what's going on. So no matter the day changes, especially as women, our moods change. I'm pregnant. Right now I'm doing great. In an hour I might be crying. I don't know. But whereas joy would be regardless of what's going on, I still have trust in what God's doing, and I'm going to get through this because that's where my source of joy even comes from.
We have a deeper, and that's what we've started from the beginning with Fruit of the Spirit, is love is kind of that base and everything flows out of that. But if we don't have that root system, that's what we're talking about. This is deeper than just, oh, everything is wonderful and I'm wearing a smile and I'm running through a field of flowers and it's a beautiful sunny day and that's what joy should look like. That's not always what joy looks like. It is, I am content, okay, and right now, even though life looks crazy. So I was thinking about, because they say Disney World is the happiest place on earth. There's a lot of people that walk into Disney World on a daily basis, and they're lacking what we're talking about, that true contentment. They walk into that moment, they're in the park for a couple days, and they do have a lot of joyful, happy moments. They got good memories. They're riding rides, they're buying expensive food, they're wearing hats, they're having a good time. But they walk out feeling the same way they did when they walked in, and that is empty. They're lacking that inner contentment in their life. So they had a momentary, fleeting moment of happiness and joy, but that's because of an experience. It was something that they were intentional about doing. It wasn't a daily extended, this is who I am. It's the base of who I am, which is what we're talking about, this root system. So I think the next obvious kind of place that we would typically go, I was joking with Rachel about this, like where would, obviously where would you go, is we have to testify about this. We've all had experiences. There have been things in our life that have come up that in the eyes of everybody around us, and even in our own mind as a human, I should not be feeling any kind of joy. I should not be wearing a smile right now. I should be depressed. I should look gloomy. I should be just in complete chaos, but yet there is some kind of a stillness about me. Can you share with us a testimony, a time, that's what we're testifying, a time in your life that circumstances were difficult, yet God sustained that joy, that inner joy that you had, and what helped you hold on to it?
I'd like to say I'm out of this. It's been a rough, I told Danny I'm going to really try not to cry. If I cry, just blame it on this
That's okay.
baby. But I would say we are still, as a family, in this. And I don't know that every day I am smiling. I don't know that every day I am even look like I have joy. But I think the fact that I'm still standing, I'm still moving forward. There may be days where I'm like, I ain't doing nothing. But regardless, I'm still showing up. I'm still doing the things. Many know our situation over the last few years has just been, gosh, if I hear one more family member has cancer, I'm like, I don't know, stick me in a loony bin. I used to say that about having another child after McKenna, and here we are, and I haven't made it in the loony bin yet, but maybe after it's born. But, I think the only thing that keeps me, has kept me through it is just being faithful in the little things. In some ways, seeing my children, keeping, sometimes you're just going because you have to feed your children. But, the season doesn't seem to be over. I don't know when it will be, but if it ever ends, I'll tell you more how I made it through. But definitely just holding on, knowing that the bigger picture is much prettier than what I'm seeing right now. I've heard it said, like, God's view, I used to embroider a lot, hand embroidery, and from our view, looking at the underside of the embroidered picture, it's just knots, it's threads, it's messy, it's ugly, but God's view of it is beautiful. There's a masterpiece being created, and there's like sketched lines that you can't see from the underside, and I think sometimes that's our life. We are a masterpiece that just can't be seen yet, and someday it's gonna be beautiful. We just have to make it through pain, poking, and threading along the way.
Yeah, and we don't wait until the end to see the full picture to have joy. There's moments, there's those pockets, those individual things that sustain us until we do feel that release of like, okay, the heaviness is gone. I don't have to feel the heaviness of the turmoil, but thankfully, look what I've accomplished through the process. I love how you said the outside sometimes doesn't look joyful, but you're still here and you're still smiling. And that's okay, because I think that's what we misassociate with, is that the only way we know people have joy is if they're showing it.
Right.
and they have to be exuding this. If not, oh my gosh, what's wrong with them? That's what we do. We typically see someone that might be down a little bit on one day, and then we gravitate towards what we're seeing, but internally does not mean that we still can't have that satisfaction of joy, even though it outside it might feel a little crazy, and that's okay. It's okay to have those days. I'm like, I'm just gonna stare at the wall today. I'm literally just gonna stare at the wall, and I'm okay with that. Give myself some grace.
Yeah, I think what comes to mind with this kind of thing is in 2021 specifically was a really 2020 of course was horrible for everyone, but I really hit rock bottom at the beginning of 2021 after a lot of stuff had come to pass, COVID related and not, and I really hit rock bottom in the beginning of 2021. And I think that sometimes God has to take you there for you to realize what your source has to be. I think I had to get to that point to realize, to kind of shift perspective of like what's important and what is the source. And there was a time where literally the only, and I think I've said this from up here before, the only thing that got me through every day was worship. There was a particular song that every single day I put it on full volume, maybe not literally, but loud enough to where, you know, when you have something so loud, you literally can't think about anything else. I would drop Elliot off at my in-laws and then just crank the volume. Because there were some times where, like, I was driving home and I was like, I had to drive home because we were teaching virtually. And they live on Elbow Road, which if you've ever been over there, there's fairly large ditches everywhere. And I would drive home and be like, if I drove into this ditch, I wouldn't have to work today. I could just not go to work the rest of the week. And I had to, like I said, the only thing that sustained me was worship. And I would put this song on that was just about the faithfulness of God. And though the storms come, I trust in you. And that was the only thing that got me through. And I had to realize, like, it literally, and, you know, I came out of that rock bottom, but it showed me the only thing that's going to sustain you, that's consistent, is the Lord. And so worshiping is one of the biggest things. Like, it's a way to show joy, but it is also a source. You can always come to the throne room. You can always come to an altar and just worship through it. And like you said, even if you're not showing it, even if you don't feel like it, I'm sure there were some days where like you said, I didn't look very joyful, but you have getting to that point is sometimes a way for you to realize, where does my hope come from? And in this case, where does my joy come from?
Because there's the obvious things are what you're struggling with, whatever that was facing in that moment. But I love how you said you go back to the source, because there's something always bigger than every one of our problems. There's a God that we know is bigger than cancer, and our fear of that and where that's leading to and what the possibilities are there. And we have to tap into that. So what we have to do is drown out what our actual natural reflex is. My reflex and response is, I'm just going to grab a hold of all the negatives and the I don't knows and try to control them. Letting go of control, especially for females, amen, is so hard. But I'm also going to speak to men, that I know men have a nature to fix things. And there's just some things you can't fix. And that's where this is coming kind of all together to say, God is reminding us, you can't fix some things that only I can fix. And so what I need you to do is get into worship, because worship is a way of saying, I'm surrendering. I am giving up. Not giving up on life, not giving up on my responsibilities, but I'm giving up on this control factor. I'm giving up on this fix-it factor, because I need you to change the internal turmoil that is there and keep me on that plateau of sanity with faith, with hope, with that. It's joy, it's peace, it's contentment. So God, the word you were saying was faithfulness and trust. I do, and I could only imagine as you're driving, And as you're listening to that song, there aren't actual words to come out to pray because the prayers just don't seem to be effective enough. But that's when worship steps in and says, well, it's not about what I'm praying because you already know my needs, Lord. You know my heart. It's about worshiping for who you are because I just need you to wash over me with faithfulness and with reminders of your faithfulness.
Right. Something through the past few years has been a lot of like, sometimes you just got to control what you can control. And funny sort of story, Samuel was like at the peak of attitude and he hurt my feelings. I was also pregnant with McKenna and he hurt my feelings and I'm like crying. I looked at Daniel, I was like, I can't, I'll hurt him. Like, I'm gonna hurt him, so I'm gonna let you take over. And then I'm just like in tears and I'm like, okay, what can I control when it's so silly? But I'm like, I'm gonna clean this shower. That's what I'm gonna do right now. And just controlling what you can control when things feel uncontrollable. And your worship has a lot to do with that. Whenever it's like, I can't do anything else. I remember there was a time we had a loss of a baby before McKenna. And I couldn't do anything else, but the only thing I could control that probably a Sunday afterwards was like, I don't have words to say. I don't have anything really to say to God right now. I'm not too thrilled with what just happened. But I could control at least walking to the altar, and I could control at least lifting my hands in the moment and just allowing, he knows. He's not naive to what just happened, but I'm able to control my own motion, my own physical being, to go to where I know I should be, and just allowing him to do what he needs to do through and for me in that moment.
And I love that's so powerful because we don't know how long whatever season we're in is going to last. And if our happiness or even our joy is conditional, like you could be in, like you said, your family has been in this season of loss and fill in the blank for years. And, you know, we all have our story, like, and if we're just like, I just need to hold on until at this ends, until some whatever. Like there was a temptation to be like, okay, I just need to get through this year, and like maybe 2022 will be better, and then it wasn't. Maybe 2023, and it wasn't. You know, like you don't know how long this season is last. You don't know what God is doing behind the scenes or what's around the corner. Like, oh, nothing could be worse than this year. And then it is. And I'm sure we can all relate to that on some level, but like I love that you're up here talking about this because you're like, I'm in the middle of this, but I choose joy. And that's the thing. It's a choice. Happiness, back to what I was saying, happiness is conditional. Joy can be a choice.
Yeah, and I think the scripture literally tells us whatever state you're in to be content in that moment. Not at the end, not like, okay, God, when 2025 or 2026 is over, the new year starts, then I'll be able to like, let's just erase this year. It didn't happen. Let's try a new year. It doesn't work that way. I am notorious. Talk to my husband about this. I'm notorious for this diet cycle of like, just bump it. I don't care. I'm going to eat whatever I want on Thursday. He's like, well, what about tomorrow? Forget that. I'm starting on Monday. And I just blow the whole weekend. Like, I'll just restart because we have this mentality like everything is on a schedule. Everything is a weekly schedule, a monthly schedule. Well, let's just do that next month. Let's just push it off. And he says, whatever state you're in to be content, like right then, right there. And that's what we're searching for. That's what we're pursuing after, is being intentional about that. I don't know how long. It's been years. And it could be more years. I don't know. It could, but you know, the beautiful thing about him is if we just think about this and we stop. And sometimes this is what I pray. Lord, you're the God that can change this that quick. I feel so and in a moment, it's like it never even happened. Or in a moment, it's like all the pieces start playing together and everything turns around. And here I am fretting of like, when God, when God, when God. And he said, just wait for the moment. And when the moment happens, you've met me at that moment with your intentionality about being at peace. So how do we protect that? I think we've kind of hit on it, but if there anything else you want to add on, how do we protect our joy when life is overwhelming? It's disappointing. We get disappointed in things. We get disappointment that it's not happening fast enough. It's not what we thought it was going to look like. How did we end up here? How do we protect that and make sure that nothing hinders what we've already gained, knowing that there's a further place we can go?
I think just to reiterate what we've already said, of course, worship. Don't make your worship conditional.
Very good. Very good.
If you've had a bad week and you don't feel like coming up here and worshiping, do it anyway. If you are grumpy and mad at somebody and you don't want to be here, you're like, do it anyway. Get out of your seat and worship anyway. And that can be in any context, in your car, in your home, in your whatever, but
Especially here. That's why we're here.
there's music, there's people. Like, if no one else is up here, I'm going to get up there anyway. And secondly, also, I think your community that you surround yourself with. Surround yourself with people that are going to encourage joy in you. Not people that are complaining all the time, saying, like, just being negative clouds, whatever. Like, surround yourself with people that are going to lift you up. We're not talking about toxic positivity or whatever. Like you said, it's not sunshine and rainbows all the time. We can be real, but people that are going to encourage you and lift you up, even in the darkest places. Like, we don't expect to be happy, joyful all the time, but you can choose to come to an altar. You can choose to lift each other up. And so where you're placing yourself and with whom you are placing yourself makes a big difference.
Like you mentioned, worship music. I think that plays a part. Don't listen to music that's like sad and gloomy and depressing and I've lost everything. I have no hope. I have no joy. Guess what? You're going to continue to feel that way. It's not going to lift you in any way.
I would definitely say my first instinct was I protect my peace. I mean, the people, much like you said, the people that are just bringing more doom and gloom to my life, I'm like, I love you. We're going to put some spacers here. I will, small doses, because my own mental health can't take on more negativity. I know I sought her out probably before, it was before I had McKenna, because I didn't know anxiety was really high with McKenna. We were going through what we were going through while I was pregnant with McKenna. But I got a counselor. I think she's a counselor. She's not a therapist, but she's my old pastor's daughter from many years ago. And she's been great at just being somebody I can confide in and talk through, because what I found is my go-to people have been the people who have gone through this with me. And I don't want to put on more on them when I'm going through my own thing. Now I do, and we do. And I'm like, okay, I need to give to somebody else, but somebody who's going to pour into me positivity. And something that I say often when I'm feeling it, in some ways it's like encouraging. I know I've said it to Daniel, but like, when has prayer ever failed me? When has he ever just like, oh, I didn't hear that one today, drop that ball? He's never. And I just try to hold on to those things, like, okay, what can I do to protect this? I'm going to just, separate from some, pull in others, and then continue to pray, even though sometimes it's like, it's so overwhelming that I'm like, I don't even know. I'm just sobbing. I'm like, Daniel's coming. He's like, you okay? I'm like, I'm fine now. I'm just in the closet here bawling. I don't know. And then afterwards, I mean, it's really like, wow, I feel a lot of peace right now. It's like God just took all of that. I didn't say anything, but he carried it all. And now I feel okay. Like, yeah, we'll go downstairs later after the kids are go to bed. He's like, do we need to talk about anything? I'm like, no, I mean, really, I just was overwhelmed, and I'm good now. It's totally fine.
I love that he gave us that outlet, especially females. He gave us that outlet. Like, shower crying is the best crying ever.
Amen.
Like, that was I don't know how that just became a natural, and if you've never experienced shower crying, you should. It's an amazing release, a hot shower, all the things. and you just do feel better. Your body has a natural way to let go of things. And I love that you said protect your peace, because that's so vitally important. And I think our homes are a sanctuary with the outside world is literally not welcome in. Our peace, our joy, our rhythm, our routines, our worship is all what's contained in there. And we control what comes in or out. And sometimes we do need to reevaluate. Okay, or we got a little imbalanced, whatever, let's readjust. But that is our safe haven. This home is our safe haven. That's why we come and worship even when we don't feel like it. We push past those feelings and say, today is the day I'm going to raise my hands. All those things are still sitting there, but that doesn't matter. I'm going to worship.
And just as a little addition, I will say that when it comes to worshiping, this is just a little plug. Fake it till you make it. I spent just real moment for a second. I spent a lot of time standing in my chair, not wanting to participate because of a lot of reasons that we don't have time for. But I'm like, nope, I'm not interested in that. I think when I was thinking about this, I'm like, okay, if joy is a state of being, what is the opposite? So if we're talking, happiness versus being upset, those are like kind of these conditional feelings. Joy is a state. I think the opposite of that could be bitterness. And I was in my chair in bitterness for a while. And I didn't enjoy coming to church. I didn't really want to talk to anyone. When I forced myself to be like, you know what, I'm going to start getting out of my seat. It makes a huge difference. It changes your whole attitude to getting yourself up and ready in the morning and getting your kids out the door because it's annoying. And I'm like, man, all these people that don't go to church are so lucky they get 2 Saturdays. It changes your whole attitude. It changes your attitude towards the people around you, the way you interact with everyone when you're here. It changes everything. And sometimes, you might get up here and jump and clap and dance and still not feel the, tingly, whatever. But so it does make a difference. So again, don't make your worship conditional, because getting up here and forcing yourself out of your seat makes a difference.
That's you choosing to maintain the foundation of what you've already said, even though your feelings don't align with it in that moment. And I love that. I think we get so comfortable. Church to us, especially long term, becomes routine. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to go through 2 songs. I'm going to go through the prayer moment, maybe pray about something I don't really have anything to pray about right now. I'm going to listen to a sermon, but I'm thinking about lunch. It's routine, but so is everything else in our life. So we have to be intentional that what you're saying is so spot on. I'm not going to make any excuses for any Sunday and miss an opportunity to refresh that joy, to kind of stir up the why I do what I'm doing, and then to leave feeling, you know what, I got a boost. That's exactly what I needed. I call it a Jesus hug. I needed that hug today. I needed that intimacy with him. I needed to feel that refreshment of that, so that tomorrow when I face the things that are waiting for me, I'm okay. I can go back to, I got the joy. So we've talked some about some self-reflections of some things that we've done, but I want to shift our focus just a little bit to how we see others with inner joy. Have you ever met someone who had joy despite going through a difficult season, and what stood out to you about them? What was it that you noticed? Again, the world sees us that way sometimes, of how do they even act that way? What was it that kind of stood out about that particular person in that season?
Well, this is where I'm hoping not to cry. I think many people, at least I would hope, here, especially within this church, immediate thought would be Brother Lyons. Ooh, blame it on this baby. But towards the end, his whole life, goodness gracious, and thankfully I did warn my husband on this, but definitely towards the end, that man's singing hymns. I'm like, how in the world? He's looking at me and he's like, people matter. And I'm just like, they do, you're right. His concerns was not with his diagnosis. It wasn't concerned with, the fate of his life. It's almost like, which I do believe he knew. He knew that no matter what, his healing was coming. And so through that, he was just like, I have joy. I can keep going. I want my life's testimony to be what matters, what really matters. And it just stood out to me that, like, much like I said before, like, the small things matter. I mean, they're small and yet big at the same time. Like, to sit there and say, you know, people matter. Like, he was telling me, and I'm like, he is telling me. Like, I know, you know. Felt a little pointed there for a minute, like, okay, Dad, all right. But, I mean, to sit there and sing hymns, like I said, there's something else I had written down about him. Just his whole, I don't know, it's just his whole life, just loving others consistently. I mean,
He was still trying to pour into people,
Yes.
even when it was like, you know what? I know I'm going through. I know
at
I'm
a time when,
uncomfortable.
like, people should be pouring into him.
Yes,
you know?
I know I'm in
It's-
pain, but he's still
yes.
trying to, like, hey, remember your purpose. Remember, and I
Yes.
love that he was challenging you and reminding you of you got.
And he's just the natural person. There's others, some people y'all don't know, so it's like Nolan Boyd to talk about them, but definitely he was like the first one to my head, and I was like, I told Dana, I was like, I'm gonna try really hard not to cry about him, but that's like the worst thing. I don't want to be up here crying, but
Crying is okay.
I agree. Well, ironically, when you said that, he was also the first one that popped into my head. Not the answer I landed on, thankfully, but as a plug, was my first thought. And I think there's something to be said that he also was just such a bright light, always making people laugh, because, like, joy does also produce the fun part. Like, we're like, joy is not always puppies and rainbows, and sometimes it is. A lot of times it will produce laughter.
Let's hope so.
And right, like, so there's something to be said about that. Like, he always just had this, like, not take life too seriously, like, whatever. So I do love that. But I think a person that comes to mind, and as something she would say, wouldn't embarrass her for the world, and she's probably tired of people talking to her from up here, would be my mother-in-law. If you think of somebody that has joy in the Lord, that's who that is. And I'm also going to try not to cry. Like, obviously, a lot of people know, like, they're going through literal hell. And you want to talk about, no year could be worse than 2023. Meet 2026. And, like, I talk about getting up here, worship anyway. She does that every week. And you talk to her, and I was talking to her about something, and she was like, it was a week where, you know, another thing had happened, and she said, I know who my hope is in. And so none of that stuff that matters, because I know who's in control, and that's it. Like, and I think it also says, like, joy is not always dancing and singing, and because there's also plenty of times where, you know, I'm sure she's on her face crying out to the Lord. But regardless of whether you're dancing or on your face crying, as long as you are coming back to that source, because sometimes we do need to just fall at his face and be like, I don't have joy and I need you to give me some. And so, excuse me, now everybody's crying. Y'all better stop. So I think, you know, if she can have that kind of hope in the Lord, supporting her husband through this kind of nightmare, then nothing.
What are my problems?
What am I crying about? Like, so anyway, I think it, like I said, it just circles back to where's your source, and it's a testimony to, like, your father-in-law and her, like, it doesn't matter, though the floods may rise and the storm may come, like, just hope in the Lord. Like, I can sleep when the wind blows. That's
right. Thank you, Brother Graham. I can sleep when the wind blows. It comes back. There's a foundation there that they've established. It's a life that they've lived. It's a commitment. And I've always said, I've watched those, and Lord, if you ever put me in a circumstance where my life is turned upside down drastically, let me emulate those that I know have gone before me and led by example, because that's exactly what they're doing. I want to be that example. I want to be able to raise my hands no matter what and say, you're worthy of it all. You're worthy of every praise and worship, even though it doesn't feel that way. And that's a life that's been lived. That's the daily grind we're talking about. That's the showing up. They've been showing up and not giving up, showing up. Because I told my mother-in-law the other day, I'm like, what other choice do we have? To me, there is no other choice. I've come so far. I still have joy after everything I've been through. I still have joy. Why would I give up now? Let me go back and see all that he has done, and I still have joy. I think that even the child song kind of is so relevant here. Jesus first, yourself last, others in between. And we got to get it in that order. Jesus, I'm coming to you first. I'm still going to serve others. Every time I go to Brenda, she hugs me. She's smiling. How you doing? I love you. Yes, you've got a lot going on, and I'm trying to reciprocate that same support, but she's not focusing on herself, it's others. And then God's saying, I'm going to pour into you. If you'll just do what you're saying, worship, get in the altars, get into worship. My final challenge, we only have a couple minutes left. How can we consistently maintain a God-rooted joy even when circumstances haven't changed? I think we've covered this efficiently, but if there's any last comments you want to say about just that never give up mentality, that just get in there and do it, what would any challenges you would give?
I think this reminds me of I can't remember what our specific topic was, but a first things topic a while ago when we talked about James, when he says, consider it pure joy when you face trials of many kinds. If you really just sit with that, like he's not just saying, be positive when things are hard because it'll get better. He's saying, consider it joy when you face trials. And to me, like, that sounds like a great way to live, right? Like, why? Sometimes I have to stop myself and be like, why am I overthinking this? Like, that sounds way more fun. To just consider it joy. Philippians 4:4 says, rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. Like, we need this reminder. Rejoice in the Lord always. And living life out of a source of joy, why wouldn't you want to live that way? Why wouldn't you? Like, living that way despite the circumstances.
We know the value of it.
Right.
We take it for granted, and we have pockets, but we don't live in it.
Yes, and like considering it joy when you face a trial, rejoicing always, that sounds like a wonderful way to live, and I think we just forget that sometimes.
I 100% agree. I wrote this down. I'm going to read it for what it says because I won't be able to tell it without reading it. But joy doesn't look like a smile on your face. Sometimes joy looks like walking to the altar, much like I said earlier, lifting your hands when you don't have the words to pray. Sometimes it looks like faithfully coming to church when you feel like staying home. Joy is choosing to show up and trust God even when your circumstances make it easier to withdraw. Joy isn't the absence of pain, it's the presence of hope in the middle of it. I mean, it's showing up, it's doing the things that you know to do, which is, if you grew up in church in any kind of way, it's what we were raised on. It's reflecting on, much talking with my counselor during this season. The last thing I hate to say, the transparency here, the last thing I really want to do is pick up my word. It's not, worship is more of my go-to. It's easy. The words of a song can play right into a situation. But picking up his word, I was telling Daniel, sometimes I'm like, okay, God, scripture's going to be for me today. And I flip it open. I'm like, and so-and-so begat, so-and-so begat. I'm like, look, I'm not trying to keep having kids. like, this is not doing it for me. But reflecting on, I think we often forget that where it says to hide his word in your heart, sometimes it's not picking up the leather-bound version of your Bible. Sometimes it's just reflecting. We can't pretend like that's not being in his word. And sometimes it really is just reflecting in on what it is that his word says. Much like Kate says, you pull the scriptures that you know are speaking into your situations, things that are a little bit more encouraging, so that way you can keep going and keep living with joy.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, ladies. This was incredible. I thank you for your insight. I think it just is an amazing reminder of how I've got it and I'm not going to give it up. It's here. I've got a hold of it. If you don't, you can get a hold of it. You can train yourself to get a hold of it. And once you do, there's not a whole lot of, just like my salvation, you're not going to offend me out of the church. You're not going to insult me to where I give this up. It's too valuable to me. The same thing should be of our joy, of our contentment, our satisfaction, our hope, that yes, I have to keep reviving it. I have to keep it alive. But I would much rather focus on that than the bitterness, than the disappointments, the frustrations, because I can very much linger on those. Let me literally linger on the good things, the positive things, and hold on to that joy. So incredibly good. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being open. Thank you for being here today. It's now time to pray. This is now officially the prayer room, so we invite you, if you would like to have conversations, we're asking you to take them out to the foyer.